There you go, Chair Hancock. It's all yours.
Thank you. Well, good afternoon, everyone. Welcome to the Board Development Committee of the West End Opportunity Partnership Board. My name is Jennifer Hancock, and I'm the chair of this group, and I want to welcome my colleagues who are here today participating as members of the Board Development Committee, as well as two special guests, Darlene Jones and Sharon Allen, two individuals who have raised their hand to participate as members of this board. The purpose of today's meeting is to have an opportunity to get to know Ms. Allen and Ms. Jones, to get to hear from them regarding their interest and participation, to get to understand their contributions to neighborhood and community, and for us to engage in a dialogue to assess their readiness and appropriateness and goodness of fit to be part of the partnership board. I can tell you, for those of us who have been on this board development committee for a while, this is an exciting day to consider the last two neighborhood seats, Park Hill and Parkland. And we're just delighted that we have these two members of our community interested in participating on this board. Let's open it up for introductions. I've had an opportunity to speak with both Darlene and Sharon individually leading up to today's call. So it's good to see you on a screen. We've had a couple of conversations and text exchanges, and I just want to again thank you for taking time out of your schedule today to participate. And I'll open it up for the other members of this board development committee, as well as our interim executive director and staff support, Rita Phillips, to introduce yourselves. But Chairwoman Milliner, if we can begin with you today and have you introduce yourself, and then we'll go to Gina and Chris, and then Rita and Laura.
All right. Yes, my name is Mary Milliner, and I am a representative for the California neighborhood, and now the chair of the board of the neighborhood development. Yeah, so that's me.
Nice to meet you.
You too.
Nice meeting you.
Hello, ladies. I'm Gina Dunlap. I sit on the board representing the Louisville branch of the NAACP, and it's a pleasure to meet you.
Same here.
Same.
Good evening. My name is Chris Romaine. I am on the board representing the Park Duval neighborhood. Nice to meet you.
Nice to meet you.
Nice meeting you.
Go ahead, Laura.
Hello, Ms. Jones and also Ms. Allen. I'm the interim president and CEO of the West End Opportunity Partnership. It is a real pleasure to meet both of you this afternoon. I grew up in the Russell neighborhood, and when my hubby and I returned to Louisville in 1985, we moved to the Chickasaw neighborhood, and we live there today.
Okay, nice meeting you.
Nice to meet you.
And Ms. Darlene and Ms. Sharon, we've had a number of phone calls and emails and texts, so I feel like I already know you. I'm the interim executive administrator, and welcome, and thank you so much for stepping up and really being committed to want to work for your community. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Ladies, I think what you'll see and what you've already heard today is a real desire to have a very inclusive, collaborative process. We want to make sure that every neighborhood in West Louisville is well represented, and that our neighborhood board members have an opportunity to engage in robust dialogue to understand the issues at hand, so that they can bring concerns from the neighborhood and ideas from the neighborhood to the board, and vice versa, that information is exchanged in a two-way respectful fashion. So we're going to begin with you, Ms. Jones. We know that you are an applicant from the Park Hill neighborhood. We'd love an opportunity to get to hear from you today, get to learn more about your background and why you have felt passionate about applying for this particular board.
I'm Darlene Jones, and I've been in the Park Hill neighborhood since 2004. I'm originally not from Louisville. My husband is. He grew up in the California neighborhood. I originally him to do this, but he pushed me into doing it. So, but I lived in Linden when I first moved to Louisville. I lived out in Linden, And then when we moved down here, things were so different from living there to here. And not just the area, but even with our insurances and everything's so different or whatever and everything. I just always felt like that the neighborhoods need to know more about what's going on city-wise or whatever and everything, and maybe change some of the things to try to have everything more of an equal thing across the whole city. So that's part of my interest, and to better the neighborhood and to have more homeowners, because I know that this area is 73% of the people who live in this area are renters. It's only like 20-some%, that own their homes or whatever and everything. And I just think that everybody should own their own home. And I just want to be able to maybe push that forward also.
Thank you very much. Your application notes that you are active in a number of community and civic groups. Can you talk a little bit about that? For instance, I know you're engaged with Clout and a number of other groups, including Good Government. Can you just speak to Telephone Pioneers, which I'm not familiar with, I admit, and I'd love to learn more about your community involvement.
Yeah, I'm not involved in any of those committees anymore.
Okay.
I'm retired, and but Clout, it was like an organization that we had through our church, where it helped people that had been on drugs and stuff like that, to help them push them in directions that they need to go in. And the Good Government, I got into that when I first came to Louisville. I met Jerry Abramson, Mitch McConnell. We were a group that was just trying to make sure that the people who were running for office were for the whole city.
Okay.
And the Telephone Pioneers, that's an organization with the phone company. That's who I worked for, Bell South.
Okay.
And we did, and they still, and I'm not, like I said, I'm not a part of them, but I still participate in some of their activities or whatever and everything. But they do a lot of helping with the communities, like when there's a tornado and stuff like that, kind of like the Red Cross. We've traveled to different cities when they've been hit by disasters or whatever, to help out, to do work. So that's what the Telephone Pioneers is about.
Wonderful. Let me open it up to my colleagues now and invite you to ask questions and get to know Ms. Jones better.
Okay, I'll go first.
Thanks, Chris. Thank you. Thank you.
Okay, very nice to meet you, Mr. Jones. Can
You
you
too.
tell me what you think would be probably the top 3 areas of concern that you have with the neighborhood that you live in right now?
The 3, safety, getting the neighborhood cleaned up, and bringing more opportunities into the neighborhood for people to work, have places to work or whatever and everything. And also, dining and stuff like that, grocery stores, something closer in where you don't have to go so far out to get, things that you would need on a daily basis.
And I know that you said you had suggested that your husband apply for this position, but how did you hear about the West End Opportunity Partnership, and what do you know about what the actual end goal is of this board?
I heard it through my husband's niece, my niece also. She's on part of the board, the West End, One West End, and she, I guess she knew that they were reading her, they were talking about, they needed somebody to represent this area, and she knew that her uncle lived in the area. So she called and asked would I be interested in trying it, me or her uncle. So like I said, he just kind of pushed me to do it because he's always busy.
Okay.
And what was the rest of the question?
What do you know about the West End Opportunity Partnership and what its purpose, the mission is?
Not as much as I should. So to be honest.
Right.
But I've been, trying to catch up and see what's going on. What it's all about.
Okay.
And that I just need to do more research and ask more questions, and I will.
Okay.
Eventually.
Thank you very much.
Mhm.
Gina, did I see you come off mute and have a question?
Yes, yes. Thank you, Jennifer. Ms. Jones, like I said, there's been a lot about this new organization in the news and in the media. And I guess I'm wondering what your thoughts are, because I guess part of our struggle has been competing messages, right? Like I think all of us are involved because we see a tremendous opportunity to make positive change for the community. But I'm wondering, I guess, what's been your experience? What have you heard from people in your circles and your networks, or your own observations about the West End Opportunity Partnership? And beyond that, what do you think we can do better?
Well, to be honest with you, I haven't heard a lot about the organization. You know, I knew that my niece was working with it, but I really didn't know exactly what all it was, what it entailed or whatever. And I just never asked about it. And that's a shame, but I just never did. But I just think that there is a lot that can be done in the West End communities or whatever that just needs to be done. Like I said, we just need to get more people involved to let them know, because I'm sure there are a lot of people that have a lot more ideas than what I do, whatever, that I have. But yeah, so I know that's not a good answer, but
Great answer. Thank you so much.
Let me ask a question, Ms. Jones. Earlier, when you were introducing yourself, you talked a little bit about your interest in home ownership, and you indicated that you thought that that was very important. You also talked about the percentage of people in your neighborhood who rent their residence rather than owning their residence. Can you elaborate a little bit more regarding your interest in home ownership?
Yeah, to me, home ownership gives you a peace of mind. When you own something, then to me, I think it makes you a better citizen. It makes you feel more responsible for your neighborhood, your home and your neighborhood, your community. And you care, I think you care more about your surroundings, when you own your home. And like I said, it gives you peace of mind. And it's something that's generational, it's a generational type wealth also. It's something that you can have that you can leave to your grandchildren, children or grandchildren, or whatever, that you can pass on to where they can prosper. That's what I think.
All right, thank you.
I apologize. I had a knock at the door that was so persistent. I had to get up and get it, and I apologize. That's why I went off camera, so as not to disrupt the conversation. Want to continue it though and open it up for other questions, and then Ms. Jones would love you to have an opportunity to ask us any questions you may have.
Okay. All right, since no one else is answering now.
Your turn. It's your turn. Good.
Okay, so as a representative, I know you're talking about bringing more information to the table or whatever and everything. Exactly what do you, as as the board, what are you expecting of us being representatives?
I think that's a wonderful question. I'll start, and I bet each of us might have some additional perspective to add to that question. First and foremost, I think we're looking for individuals who will be deeply engaged with us. This is a new board that's still in many respects in its infancy, if not it may be advancing and growing into toddlerhood, but we're still a very young board, really seeking to develop a cohesive approach and strategy to investing in West Louisville. And we know that there's going to be a lot of different ideas for us to consider how we use the seed capital and the future revenues that derive from the tax revenue that will be created now and moving forward. And so as we think about how to create an environment where all voices are respected and heard, it's going to be really important that board members come and engage in a dialogue that's respectful, that's robust, and that really represents the interest of their neighborhood. And so being able to have your finger on the pulse of what your neighbors and friends and family members think and feel from the neighborhood perspective is going to be really important to us. So for me, that's what I think is most important, is a real passion and commitment to engaging in a healthy dialogue and a healthy process, so that we don't all have to agree. In fact, I don't think we should. We should see the world differently based on our vantage points, but to be able to come together in a way that puts all the ideas on the table and then sorts through them to get to a place where we can all align and then execute on that vision and strategy for this board.
Okay.
Let me add to a little bit of what Jennifer just said. One of the most exciting features in the legislation that called the Weston Opportunity Partnership into existence is the requirement that there be a representative from each of the 9 neighborhoods on the board for the organization. And in my mind, those 9 neighborhood representatives are not only the eyes and the ears, are the individuals who have a very heavy burden, because they have the responsibility of representing their neighborhoods' interests, wants, and perspectives on the board. So that each neighborhood representative, I think, has to be a little bit bold, has to be inclusive, has to have some confidence in being able to talk to people, fashion their message, and to bring their messages forward. So we're really interested in having neighborhood representatives who welcome that role for themselves, who welcome that role as being the messenger, the uniter, and who feel confident in representing the people in their neighborhood and not hesitant about it at all.
Okay, right.
And I will tag on to that and say that that's very true. When you're representing that neighborhood, and once the news comes out and as we move forward and things happen, you're going to be the person that everyone in your neighborhood comes to, you know, whether that's good, bad, or whatever. So you're going to most definitely, and there's going to be questions that people are going to ask you that you don't have the answers to. And, you know, and that's going to have to be your answer, but you still will have to get back with them to give them that answer. So they have to feel comfortable that you are, in fact, looking out for the best interest of the neighborhood. And there, right now, because we're still in that beginning stage, there's a lot of unknown about the Western Opportunity Partnership and the TIP. And so there's a lot of misinformation out there. So there's a lot of people who think that we're just going to push everybody out and, you know, just gentrify the whole West End. And so that's something that you're going to have to deal with and have to be able to have your facts, you know, have your talking points and know exactly, you know, what it is we're trying to do and getting that message across. So that's definitely needed.
Okay.
Yes.
So that's good, because I'm a fact-driven person, you know, coming
Outstanding.
from the world that I come from, you know, you have to have your facts of whatever and everything. So that's good.
Mhm. And
Right.
before the statute also requires that before the partnership takes on even a single project, we have to do information gathering in each of the 9 neighborhoods and find out what those neighborhood people want us to do. So all of our programs are inextricably tied to the wants, needs, and preferences of the folks in the neighborhood that you represent. So each neighborhood representative, again, is a pipeline.
Mhm.
I said, you really have to be bold. You have to be willing to bring forward their concerns. You have to be willing to ask the questions that they're not able to ask because they're not sitting at the board table.
Right.
And you have to feel confident in doing that, you know, because it's important. It is a critical part of the process to be that pipeline, that information gatherer, that information highway for people.
Okay.
I'd add, in addition to all of those, really, I think, good observations, I guess I think that each of us, because this is so new and we're involved in, don't necessarily understand how things are going to play out. I think another legislative requirement is that we go through training, right? So everybody on the board is going to be offered an opportunity to train under a number of topics. Maybe Ms. Douglas could remind us what those are, but you know, that was also baked into the legislation because this is a very new thing in state history. In a lot of ways, we're setting a model for the nation. I don't know that there's anywhere else in the country that's doing something like this. And so we're all getting up the learning curve together with all of our various backgrounds. So I think having a natural curiosity as well as a willingness to learn new things would be a great trait in all the board members too.
Yeah, I'm glad you said that, Gina, because that's what I did at best. I was a trainer. And I think that anything you endeavor, you need to be trained. You know, it's easy to say to get out and do stuff or whatever and everything, but you, like you said, you do need to have some training so you can know what, you know, how to talk to people and do things. Yeah. So that's good. I'm glad to hear that.
Let me kind of follow up a little bit. And I think we're at the point now that we're so intrigued and involved in the partnership that there are points in time where we sound like we're having like a prayer service or a preaching session, we're preaching to the choir all the time about what our responsibilities are and the exciting things that we see unfolding. But Gina mentioned training. Now, one of the most important things about the training is I think it addresses the idea that because of the categories of board members that we have, some appointed by the governor, some appointed by the mayor, some who represent institutions like the University of Louisville or Simmons College, you have a very different experience represented on the board regarding other board experience. There are folks on the board who currently serve on any number of nonprofit boards and that's part of their career path. But there are other folks on the board, particularly the people who represent the neighborhoods, who may not have had nonprofit board service before. So the training that's required in the statute is a way of putting every board member on the same footing.
Right.
Critical information that you need to know to be a conscientious, well-informed nonprofit board member will be addressed in the training. For instance, there will be things like board governance. That is, how is the board organized? What are the responsibilities of board members and officers? The notion that the organization itself is a legal person under law and is entitled to have its interests addressed and met. There's the whole governance includes the duty of loyalty in that regard, that our actions as board members have to be done in the best interest of the organization, which is a legal person who's entitled to be actualized under the law. We have requirements concerning procurement. So there'll be a little section that talks about procurement. Also, in the world that we operate in now, it's important for us to be able to interact with and, in the sense of community, meet the needs of people from diverse backgrounds.
Mhm.
There'll be a lot that we cover that concerns diversity and inclusion in the training that we will do. But again, the whole training is designed to make sure that every board member is on the same footing, has the same information regarding the focus of their service as a board member.
Okay.
And Laura, if I can just add to that, you may want to just share, because one of the primary, I guess, responsibilities or knowledge that has to come before the board is the fact that we are a public entity
Yes,
and that we operate differently, and, you know, helping the board to understand the responsibilities that we have as a board versus what our responsibility is to the public. So I
Yes.
just think that's a critical component, because I've seen some confusion around that.
yeah, we are a public entity, meaning that we're subject to the open meetings, open records requirement under the Kentucky statutes. That means that the public can attend our meeting, they can observe, and they have an opportunity towards the end of the meeting or at a point on the agenda that the board permits it to make a statement. What's not allowed under the statute is questioning or a usurpation of the time that's allotted for the board meeting or an open-ended presentation. The board has the authority to decide how long it will permit members from the public to make a statement at board meetings, because in truth, the board meeting is the setting where the board itself conducts its business. Now, we are subject to open records in as much as all of our final documents are public documents, and the public, any member of the public can request a copy of a final document from us. That would include board meeting agendas, board meeting minutes, any contracts we may have signed, anything of that nature, financial records, et cetera.
Okay.
All right.
Great discussion, you all. Ms. Jones, is there anything else from your perspective that you want to ask for now before we move over to Ms. Allen?
No, not at this time.
Thank you so much. This was a wonderful conversation. It's been a pleasure to get to learn more about you and have this dialogue today. Ms. Allen, you're on deck if you're ready.
I am.
Thank you so much, and appreciate you particularly carving out some time from work today. I know this is kind of sitting in the middle of your workday, so thank you so much. And I'm going to open it up to you now to give us a little bit of your background and history and how you came to apply for this board.
Okay. My name is Sharon Allen. I was born and raised here in Louisville, Kentucky. I live on 28th Street. This was my parents' house. Far back I can remember, I believe I was in the 5th grade when we moved here, and I've been here ever since. I'm currently working. I work at Ford on the assembly line. My only concern with work is the hours, because I don't have a set time. I found out about you all through the media. And when they said that they were looking for representatives from each neighborhood, I did speak to some of my neighbors, And a couple of them told me they were going to apply. I kept checking, they never did. I said, I'm gonna have to step up because there's a lot of stuff over here that needs to be done bad. I've also ventured out to some of the neighbors that have moved in. I'm not getting anywhere, but I'm not giving up. I still keep trying to talk. I work better with the pastor across the street from Historical Calvary Baptist Church, Rev. Whitlow. Him and we talk a lot. I've had some problems with break-in in my own house. And I spoke to the young man that did this, trying to get some things worked out. Drugs is a big problem here. And the neighborhood is just really run down real bad. There's 3 of us in this neighborhood, the original people living here. Currently, I'm not here because my companion is an older man and he's got dementia. So I'm living with him to take care of him right now. But this is my home. I really am interested. I really am, because we need help here bad. There are a lot of businesses down on 20th and Dumanil that have tried opening up and doing things, but I can't get the people here to recognize that we have to work with them, not against them. So hopefully, if I can go to them to say that I'm on this board and, I need to find out what you all want to do or what we can do. And we have to work together to get this done. Maybe then they'll start talking and want to do something. That's all.
Thank you so much. Thanks for sharing so much about your personal circumstances as well. And understand completely, both from a work perspective with your hours as well as your situation with your partner, that
Yes.
we are all balancing a number of other priorities, and
Right.
appreciate your interest despite some of the other challenges and pressures that you're facing. So thank you so much. I want to
Okay.
open it up to my colleagues now to see what questions you have for Sharon.
Miss Allen, if you're able to do so, I was really intrigued as you were talking about your current circumstances, and you mentioned the young man who broke into your home.
Yes.
And you said that you had had a conversation with him.
Yes.
That was really interesting to me in the sense that it's part of the whole process of restorative justice to speak directly to the young man about what happened and his reasons behind his activity. Are you able to share a little bit more information with us concerning the outcome of the conversation that you had, or what really was the impetus for you having that conversation?
Well, he growed up. My mother, bless her heart, she loved people and she would do anything in the world for anybody. And this young man grew up, went to school with my son. The first night that it was broken into, he came over and he said that he knew who did this. And my family, we looked at each other like, who did what? Because didn't nobody say anything. We didn't say the house was broken into or it was a fire. So we knew then that he had to have some type of involvement. After talking for a while, the police found the bag. This young man left. He found the bag outside the window and it had his information in the bag. I gave it a couple of days. I went back to talk to him, and that's when I found out that drugs was involved. He really, he was so remorseful. He really did not want to do this, but he said he just didn't have he didn't have any other choice. So, couple houses up the street, because they seen this young man break into their house, they were able to file charges. I couldn't file charges against them because I didn't see him. And he had to go to jail. He lost his mother, and I went to the funeral, and we talked some more, and he apologized. He said that he was really sorry. And I haven't seen him anymore.
Mhm. Okay. Thank you for sharing that.
Yes.
What questions do we have for Ms. Allen? Gina?
Yes, Miss Allen, similar question to what I posed to Ms. Jones in terms of what you've heard in community about the Western Opportunity Partnership, whether that's been positive or negative, or just and or ideas of what you think we could be doing a little better.
I really haven't heard anything other than what was advertised on the TV. And that's why I was glad that the other member the other lady brought up about learning more about you all, because I didn't know anything about any type of committee trying to do anything for the West End. And when I seen this on the news, all I could pick up on was that they were looking for representatives from each neighborhood. And if you were interested, where you can get this application. So that's what I did. After my neighbors not following through on what they said, I had to go ahead and do it.
Thank you.
Ms. Allen, what questions do you have for us today?
I want first to apologize to you all. Brian Heating is here to work on my heating. So I'm walking around so he can have room, but I would like to know a little bit more about, well, I did hear some of it already about what the organization is. And because of if I am considered a candidate, because of my work schedule, will this be a problem? You know, if you all agree to accept me.
Can you tell us a little bit more about your work schedule? You mentioned that it was sporadic in terms of not having a regular schedule. Can you give us a little more information about what that means?
Sure. I work at the Ford Truck Plant out Westport Road in Chamberlain Lane. I've been there 29 years. I am a line inspector. The only requirement, I'm on day shift, so I have to be there at 6, but Ford doesn't have a cutoff time. They run until they get the production that they want. So I can be there anywhere from 10, 11, or 11 and a half hour days.
When we spoke, Sharon, it sounded like it would be possible, and I think you were going to speak to your supervisor to see if, like today, for instance, you could carve out time and take that as a break at work if you were scheduled for time. You were scheduled on the days of our board meetings where you could Zoom in. Is that an option? Of course, we all want to be physically present, but I can speak for myself. There have been some times over the past year where I've been traveling for work and just haven't been able to be physically present, but I could Zoom in like we're doing today. Is that an option?
Okay, after discussing that with them, I was told that because we're all into a new launch, a new year, so it's new production, they would not be able to switch my lunch to make time for me. I would have to go with whatever the plant did.
So your day starts at, did you say 7:30?
No, 6 a.m.
Okay, and it typically ends at what time?
Well, it just depends on what the production is. Like here lately, we've been getting off about 5:30. And because I do live in the West End, it takes me a couple of hours. to get home because we're all getting off at the same time. And then there's other, businesses in the area that let off at the same time.
Mhm. Okay.
Miss Allen, so it just happened to work out today for you to be available?
Yes, matter of fact, all week they've been sending us home early because of parts. So I got off today at 2:30.
Only thing I would suggest is that we won't know it's a problem until it's a problem. So you never
Right.
know how your schedule is going to be. So that's the only thing I can offer. You don't know, like we meet once a month right now.
Uh-huh.
Currently, we're meeting at 4:30. When we first started meeting a year ago, we were meeting on Saturdays, so you just never know what the flexibility will offer. So I would like to continue to encourage your interest and your commitment.
Okay, well, I'm all for it. I just want to be upfront with you all, to let you know. So if it's where I can't do it, then this is the reason. It's not because I don't want to.
Mhm.
It's just that my job is gonna, it will be a problem.
Aside from your work hours and the possibility that it may interfere with a board meeting that we have scheduled, would your work hours be an impediment to you interacting with folks in your community, providing information from us to them and from them to us?
No, it wouldn't, because right now I only work the 4 days. I'm off on Fridays. So, the weekend I can, go around, discuss things with people, or find out what they're interested in. I can't do that. It's just Monday through Thursday would be a problem.
Okay. Okay. Thank you.
Mhm.
Other thoughts on this particular point? Are we comfortable adopting Rita's perspective that we don't know it's a problem until it becomes a problem? Or is there other opinions on that?
Ms. Allen did say that you don't work on Fridays, right?
I do not know.
Okay.
Other point I'd like to make, I think in the statute, 80%, is it 80%? I'm not sure, I haven't checked, but I think the board is required to have 80% attendance. So again, until it becomes a problem. And then, of course, all meetings are recorded. So if you had to miss a meeting, you would be able to catch up through the recording and the minutes. So I just offer that as a thought as well.
Okay. Thank you, Rita. All right, any other discussion or any other questions before we move the meeting to consider motions for recommendations to the full board for each of these nominees?
Jennifer just had a point of order, I guess, about the structure of how we move forward in the next few minutes. Are we going to openly deliberate or move into a closed session type of format?
I'm going to defer to you, Laura, as I don't recall what our precedent has been.
Yeah, I don't think that we have in the past voted with the candidates present. I think it would be appropriate for them to be excused from the meeting while we deliberate.
Thank you. Ms. Allen and Ms. Jones, anything from you before we bless and release you?
No, I don't have
No,
anything at this time.
myself either.
Thank you. On behalf of the West End Opportunity Partnership Board Development Committee, I want to sincerely thank you for your time today, for your interest and participating on this board, for your candor and transparency. Those are all characteristics that we all admire and appreciate very much. So thank you so much, and we will be back in touch with you very soon.
Thank
Okay.
you all.
Thank you
You all have a
both.
good evening.
It's nice meeting you
Same.
both.
Nice
Thank-
meeting you all.
Thank you all. Bye, Miss Darlene. Bye, Miss Sharon.
Bye-bye.
Bye, Ms. Darlene. Bye, Sharon.
Bye.
Okay, and Alicia, I'm sorry I didn't welcome you earlier. I see you're with us now. Thanks for joining us.
It is okay. I was driving, so forgive me for not having my camera on. I had
No
to pick up my
worries.
son.
No worries. Be safe. That's all good. Glad you're here. Well, let's open it up for discussion now. Thoughts? Let's take these one at a time if we can. Let's start with Ms. Darlene Jones, representing the Park Hill neighborhood. Any further discussion before I invite a motion?
So as a side note, I just happened to go into the attendees list and see that we have a board member attending, not as a panelist. I didn't know if it might be appropriate or if they might like to be brought over as a panelist for the discussion. But that's just an
Who is
observation.
it? Gina, I didn't see that.
Desmond Smith appears to be attending.
Yes,
Assuming-
so I sent out an email for any board member who was interested in sitting in. I didn't get any responses, but I also, under the distribution, Desmond apparently has received, just through our database. So he is sitting in as an observer from the board perspective. So he has not communicated to me that he would like, to be brought over or anything. So I didn't act on that. I was waiting for him to request that, if that's something he wanted.
Great. Thank you both. Any comments or feedback regarding Ms. Jones and her application and her comments today?
It's not specific to Ms. Jones, it's actually to both of them. So I know that we've had a lot of trouble filling these two positions. And so I'm assuming that this is what we came up with. And if we don't bring these ladies on board, we're still stuck trying to fill these positions. And how exactly does that impact this board in 2023 if we are unable to fill the Park Hill and Parkland neighborhood board seats?
Well, I don't know that it materially gets in our way from making forward progress, but I think from an optics and a philosophical standpoint, I know this has been a high priority for this committee and for the full board to have a fully constituted board, particularly from the standpoint of the neighborhood representatives. And Chris, you're right. We do not have a robust pipeline of citizens coming from those two neighborhoods, unfortunately. And that's despite a lot of effort over these past months from both this committee, as well as from Laura and Rita specifically, as well as Dr. Gabe Jones and his community engagement committee. So these are the two prospects for us to consider today. With that said, I don't want us to feel like we can't, make the right decision for this group and this board, despite the fact that we don't have many candidates to consider.
Let me offer this up and to Mother Hen, your decision-making here. But one of the things that's most striking about both candidates is that in the circumstances that they present to us, they are very representative of what life is like on a daily for the folks who live in the Parkland neighborhood and Park Hill, particularly the discussion about being a victim of crime and the remarkable reaction that the candidate had to that. Remember when we were talking with folks at the Boys and Girls Club, one of the things she kept reminding us of was that there is some real trauma in the community that keeps people from focusing on things like board membership and folks like us on a daily, because they're dealing with the aftermath of COVID and deaths. They're dealing with being victims of crime and the impact that that has on their families and the way that it makes people paralyzed. So I think that any candidates who come forward from these two neighborhoods are going to present themselves in very much the same way that these candidates have presented themselves, because this is what life is like where they live.
I think that's beautifully stated. And I also, particularly in light of Miss Allen and her schedule at work, it reminds me of the importance we've placed on being accessible. And a lot of people don't work. I mean, look at Dr. Milliner. She works a school day that
Yes.
keeps her tied up until 4 or 4:30. Not everyone has the flexibility, particularly the first shift flexibility. So I definitely agree with you, Laura, and wanted to add to your comments regarding the accessibility factor.
Yes, yes.
And I just wanted to say, adding to that, that those two candidates, even with their situations and the barriers that they face on a day-to-day basis, they were more than willing to say, I'm here, I'm ready, I want to be a part of this. I may not know everything I need to know now. I may have some things that may impede me from being, here at this particular time, but I want to be a part. And I feel like we've not seen a lot of candidates that are that willing to just jump on board and say, hey, here I am ready to do this.
Great point. We're approaching the 5:30 mark, and so I just want to open it up for any additional comments. Questions?
Jennifer, just wanted to ask one question, thinking about the last time we were actually assembled in a meeting format, which I'm struggling to remember what date that was. But I know between then and now, I had shared the list of candidates who had applicants for the Parkland neighborhood. It's always been very difficult on the Park Hill side, but I'm wondering if any of the people that were on those previous lists were considered for the Parkland position this time. I think I shared it with maybe Gabe and Chris, and just wondering if we entertained any additional conversation with those applicants who were not selected the first round for Parkland.
I know that both Rita and I did some outreach with those candidates, and the candidate that we brought forward is the person who was responsive to outreach and engaged in the dialogue. So yes, thank you, Gina, for reminding us of that there were some past applicants, and who we've brought forward today is the person most responsive.
Thank you so much. Appreciate it.
Thank you. Okay, with that said, is there a motion? Let's do these in two separate motions if we can. Is there a motion to recommend Ms. Darlene Jones on behalf of the Park Hill neighborhood for the full board to consider at our next meeting?
And the motion would have to come from a committee member, as opposed to us hangers on who are interested.
I don't think I'm officially on this committee. Am I?
I think you are.
Yes, you are. Yes, you
Oh,
are.
I was
I'm on
gonna
Dave's
ask,
committee.
Jennifer, if you could remind us who's officially on the committee.
Yes, Gina, Chris, Mary, Alicia, me. We are the committee today, and Desmond, welcome as our guest and colleague, and Laura and Rita staffing us today.
So I will make a motion.
So I move that we, okay, go ahead. Sorry. I was talking over you.
Go ahead.
Oh, well, I was gonna move that we recommend Ms. Darlene Jones to represent the Park Hill neighborhood on the Western Opportunity Partnership Board of Directors.
Because you're doing so much better than me. And I will second that motion.
Thank you. We have a motion and a second. Any other discussion? All right, all in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? 13. Thank you. That motion passes. We'll recommend Ms. Jones at our next board meeting. Let's see if I can get a second motion now for Sharon Allen representing the Parkland neighborhood.
I will motion that we appoint Ms. Sharon Allen to represent the Parkland neighborhood for the West End Opportunity Partnership Board.
Thank you, Chris. Is there a second?
I will
I
second.
second.
I heard Dr. Milliner first and then Alicia, thank you. And any other discussion? All right, all in favor, please signify by saying aye.
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 Any opposed? Okay, that motion passes as well. So we have two nominees that we are recommending go forward for consideration of our full board at our next meeting, which is Monday, if I'm not mistaken. Let me pull up the calendar.
Yes.
Here. Monday, January 23rd. I will be back in person and I'm thrilled to see you all finally again. And look forward to us being able to share the good news with these two nominees and to take these before the board of directors. Thank you all so much for your discussion, for your thoughtfulness, for your participation. And I want to acknowledge in the chat box, Ms. Amira Granger, thank you for your points about schedules and accommodating. I do think it's important as we think about the diversity of this board and what we've discussed today in terms of accessibility, that we take before the board just a friendly discussion regarding our meeting time and day so that we can be as accessible as we possibly can. It's going to be impossible to satisfy all of our scheduling needs just because we are such a large board, but I do appreciate the sentiment and the spirit from where I see that comment coming and would be happy to have that discussion. Gina.
Just sort of related to Chris's question about neighborhood vacancies. We have a number of institutional vacancies, and I'm wondering if Ms. Douglas has or will provide any updates on filling those institutional vacancies.
Yes, we can. We can. We've gotten a representative from One West who will be attending this month's board meeting. I've had conversations with Dr. Kumi Price regarding a representative from the Urban League, and I'm about to have a conversation as well with the Federal Reserve on the same matter. But we do have a new board member representing Humana who will be with us this month.
Representing Humana?
She is from Humana, who's on the board and she is the One West delegate.
Okay, and then the philanthropy and the Metro Council seats, nothing there to report?
We have that vacancy because David Kaplan has moved to the new mayor's position. I'll have an update regarding that seat by the board meeting day.
Awesome, thank you so much.
Mhm.
Great, thank you. Is there any other business to come before the committee today? If not, I will take a motion to adjourn.
All right, motion that we adjourn the meeting.
Thank you, Chris, and I'm assuming we're all in favor of that. So enjoy the rest of your evenings, everyone. Thank you so much. Good to be with you, and I'll see you.
Well
on
done,
Monday.
Madam Chair. Well done.
Thank you. My pleasure. Look forward to seeing everyone on Monday.
Bye.
Bye now.
See you, Desmond. Good seeing you.
Thank you. Hey, Desmond, thank you. Thank
Yes,
you.
thanks,
Thank you, Dr.
Desmond.
Milliner.
Good to see you.
Bye, everybody.
Bye.